If you've been on and off diet since your 20s and still don't have that tighter look that you want, I am here to talk about the part that no one, well, actually, they are kind of talking about it, but they're not truly being honest about it. Maintenance, eating more, getting out of a diet. This is where we get a little, well, that sounds counterintuitive because if I want to lose fat, why would I want to eat more? But the hard truth is that most women never get lean because they never leave the fat loss mode for long enough. It's gonna exhaust itself out just like any engine does if it doesn't do the maintenance work, if it doesn't get serviced. And you can't build a new body, new results with the same mindset or with the same strategies, actions, behaviors that you were doing in the first place that kind of got you in this place where you weren't really changing. And that's the hard part because you're showing up, you're doing the work, you're training hard, being good, and sometimes you might fall off, feel guilty, then try even harder. And this diet limbo place where you're mentally exhausted, probably emotionally exhausted as well, and the inability to have any willpower or discipline. We want to progress. We want to look good. We don't want to live in this restriction, exhaustion phase where we feel like, what's the whole point? I'm trying to sacrifice, missing out on this, not living my best life, not having the energy, not seeing the results I want, scrolling through your newsfeed, feeling even worse because you compare how you're feeling to how they're looking and probably smiling and it seems all happy and dandy, but this is the problem. I'm talking about what our definition of progress is because it's going to be uncomfortable to do things differently. And if we've tried to eat more before, tried to do this thing called maintenance, and it didn't quote unquote work for us, or if eating over 1700 calories makes us feel like we blow up or it doesn't work for us, or we just gain weight whenever we do try to eat carbs, it all comes down to the same paradigm of what does progress actually look like? What does body recomposition look like? What does it look like to create this more defined, more toned body without having to starve your way there, without having to smash yourself with training to an unsustainable point? You can train hard and heavy and still not see progress because you're training without actual progression, without actual strategy. And progressing for a certain 4 week period where you're seeing the weight spot for 4 weeks or even 6 weeks, that doesn't mean you're training progressively either. Consistency is going to be the number one thing, yes, but it doesn't matter how consistent you are if it's not in the right direction and it's not done with effort that we need it to be done with, which gets really damn hard when you're not seeing the results for the work that you're putting in because it's going to get demotivating. It's going to get defeating. You're going to be like, well, I'll just put in a little less effort. You might not even realize that you're doing it. So I'm going to show you how to actually drop body fat and build muscle definition without cutting another single delicious breadcrumb. Well, any carb, really. In fact, it's carbs that are going to help with how you want to look. And I know that that sounds a little bit what? But I hope by now you know that I'm a big advocate of carbs. If anything, an over excess of fat is what makes us look all soft. Fat doesn't need a biological process to get turned into fat. It is already in a fat substance. Carbs, on the other hand, are the fuel. And this even applies to people with PCOS, menopause. I'm sure you would have heard my 56-year-old on the podcast say herself that she has never seen herself with more muscle, more strength, more definition, feeling as good through the day when she finally stopped cutting out bread. She finally got to have, in her words, a damn fucking piece of bread with her lunch. I want you to get to that position too, and I want you to feel confident, not second guessing everything. To talk about that dirty middle, because it feels like you're watching grass grow in the desert and paint dry in the tropics. Most women never get lean because of this, and we're going to change that. Feeling uncomfortable in maintenance is so normal. You probably feel like unless you're really strict or you slash your calories really low, you'll never be able to see leanness. And whenever you do go into a fat loss phase, your calories have to be so low and you have to be so on point with things or nothing changes. And that's because no one does this phase for long enough. And it's keeping you in this cycle of losing and gaining the same weight, but with more fat. And the older you get, yes, this is where hormones then start to pull that fat into your belly. And that is where you get softer over time. That is where your metabolism ends up slowing down because that's the worst place to store fat. And if you spent years measuring success by just loss, weight going down, calories being low, and you feeling your clothes a little looser, even compliments that we get on, you look so good, you look like you lost weight, what are you doing? All that stuff starts to make it really difficult for us to let go of this, like, let's stay lean or let's chase lean identity. But the more that you hold on to that, the harder it's going to be. And trying to lose fat and build muscle at the same time is why you end up looking the same years after years, and why progress feels so slow, because they are two different things. They require two different processes. We want to be able to eat enough to fuel our training to build muscle, and then have fuel to then build extra muscle tissue. Have the food there for recovery to be able to train hard, to come back and train even harder. Actually, I would argue that the hardest part is when you finally decide, okay, I want to give this a go. You expect to see a leaner body composition because that's what everyone's saying, muscle is lean. As soon as you eat more, you're going to get leaner. Reverse diet, you're going to look leaner. There's a lot of shit out there, and it's really damn difficult to know what you're supposed to be seeing. And that's probably the hardest part, because just because you start eating more and training really hard, it doesn't mean you're going to look leaner or get leaner. And many times we end up feeling more bulky, especially if it's our first time fueling ourselves properly and training really hard. You will hold carbs, glycogen, you will hold water, and for the first little while, there is going to be more muscle damage than usual. We don't usually aim for muscle damage. We aim for mechanical tension. We want to maximize tension. Sometimes that comes with damage. In the first few weeks and months of lifting, there's going to be more of that. And that comes with muscle tears, and that's going to pull in more water. That's going to pull in more blood. And it's what they call inflammation in the muscle. And that's why I like to say, this is 100% real with Ruby. We don't do princess lifting here. We also don't chase perfection. But we do want to make sure that we build our foundation solid enough and strong enough so that it can handle things when they shackle a little. And most people don't get to experience that because they sniff something and it's almost like they blow up. We don't want that for you. We want you to feel like you're progressing along the way. Reframing what this is meant to look like. I also want to look into the checklist of what you need to be focusing on in this phase so that you can feel like you're progressing, and some normal things that you'll be experiencing that could make you second guess yourself and then start all over again, and give you an action plan for the end. And the second that you tell your brain not to focus on losing weight and to stop focusing on dieting, start to move in this direction, it's going to scream, this feels wrong. I must be gaining fat. I don't want to gain weight. I don't want to lose the progress I had or where I'm at now. I need to pull calories back, and boom, you're questioning everything again, overthinking, overanalyzing, off to start another deficit that your body and you weren't even ready for, because 6 months is very, back to reframing all of this, 6 months is like you're not gonna build anything notable in 6 months, let alone in 12 months. That's the reality of building muscle. And especially in the first year, because you would ideally technically still be learning how to train for the results you want. You'll be learning how to train for body composition and not just moving weights. You'll be learning how to build the foundation so that you can keep loading it. That is one of the biggest issues. So many women skip this part, follow a program, or they don't get the guidance and help from a one-to-one online coach so that you can learn how to brace, learn how to hinge, learn how to use your body in a way that it's not just going to break under load or your back's going to give out. Because how can you expect to have continual progress through your program if none of those things are in place? And again, that's why most women never get lean, because we are so focused on fat loss mode, fat loss mindset, trying harder, but not learning how to build something that allows us to stack stuff on top continuously. So that's why we keep hitting bottlenecks. And I know that sometimes this can sound like absolute bullocks because you equated less food to more results, or you equated losing weight to more results, getting leaner as the only means of feeling good, and being on a diet is what you're used to feeling. So it is going to be something we're going to need to shift our focus on if we want to progress. Because it doesn't matter what we get our body to do, the mind is always going to be the bottleneck, and we are always going to stop ourselves with big doubts. That is where we enter dieting limbo, half in, half out, not losing anything and not even getting into a position where we can effectively lose fat, and not in a position to effectively build muscle or build some form of training capacity that allows us to potentiate progress in the future, which is what my coaching is all about. I want to build up someone's training potential, someone's training strength and capacity to a point where when it is time to diet, it's going to be so much easier you're able to maintain this performance, maintain this strength, you're able to maintain muscle and possibly still get stronger in the first period of your fat loss phase and be able to keep your metabolism pumping, energy pumping, and it actually just work without having to grind your gears and white knuckle it. That's where we typically end up finding ourselves, which is why we don't end up with that harder look. So the timeline reality, the first thing is that this has nothing to do with your age. Hormones, they don't have as big of a role in this as you think, but they do impact your mood. They do impact your energy. And if you're not sleeping properly and you're not fueling yourself properly and you're not eating enough protein or fueling with enough carbs, that is the issue. It's not a chicken and an egg scenario. This is very much the root cause of the hormonal things that you are experiencing. And then you're going into perimenopause. This is where you need to be. You cannot wing it anymore in perimenopause. You need to protect this stuff, and you also need to be kinder with yourself, especially if you're a mom, especially if you had kids. It's going to be even more of a shit show because you have even more demands, more cognitive load around you. This is not a time to be focusing on anything that is either a full-on let's just strike it out and smash it like a Hulk, unless you already have things in place for that. Or the same thing with fat loss. The best thing you can do is maintain where you're at. And this again is a hard part because we feel like maintaining is just wasting time. It's just putting your progress on hold, it's stealing you of all progress. But no, this is where you make results. Like I said before, we've only ever equated progress to downwards, but that's not actually progress. That's revealing the work that you've done. Ideally, we don't want to be losing weight all the time because that would have to mean that you would have gained it back at some point. And if you added up all of the weight that you've lost over the period of your life or all the time that you've focused on weight loss, kind of sad, you've probably lost your body weight or more over and over again, instead of actually getting yourself to a point where you can just have it as a one and done. And the reality is that we just need to be freaking patient with the process. That isn't something that I'm going to ask of you because that isn't something that I know you can do. So we're going to find some progress and we're going to get you chasing something that makes you excited, because trying to burn fat, lean up and build muscle at the same time is not going to work. Muscle is what sculpts shape, and it's the only thing that makes you more defined. Muscle is that definition. Otherwise, it's just a soft, flabby look. Any other protrusion is going to be bone, which isn't really shapely, and we want shape. Something that gifts us a whole new energy. The more that we can amp ourselves up for all that is to come, the more successful we're going to be. Because we all know when we just go into a set just like, or we go into a set fully amped up, the difference it makes. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. And that's why it's not just about what you do with training and nutrition. It's about everything around you as well. You want your life to fulfill you. We don't want diet mental masturbation. We want training mental masturbation. I want you to mentally masturbate around what your lifts look like, what your logbook looks like, what your technique looks like. Film that shit. Get it nailed in. We want our focus on the stuff that actually changes our body. Has that worked for you before when you focused on the scale, when you focused on just the fat loss and the dieting and the less calories? No, because that doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It's an outcome. It hasn't made anything better in the past. So let's do it this way. And if you're already training 4 to 6 times a week, the real question isn't if you should be doing more either. It's, is your training actually doing what it needs to do for your body to change? Then we can talk about fueling your workouts and recovery, as you can eat all the protein and you can get out of a diet and eat more food, but it doesn't mean that muscles are going to grow. That's the training. That's why I want you to mentally masturbate over the training, not another little macro or whatever carb you want to eat, sweet potato or red potato or purple potato or eggplant potato. There's such a thing. In joke, I'm sorry. Think of it, lean defined physique. There is scale going down, you're getting a little smaller. Yes, for your first lot of this, being new to training, having a lot of fat to lose, there is a period there where you will be able to maintain muscle or build muscle. But then from there, we need to get specific. Remember what I said, regardless of what you do, everything works until it doesn't. So I don't want you to get trapped in the delusion or illusion, I should say, of the wrong thing. So training, we want to make sure that you're hinging properly, you're bracing properly. Don't wear joggers to the gym. Wear flat shoes. Make sure you're using your big toe. I want you to make sure that you are choosing big compound moves that you can learn, that you can progress on. If you can't yet squat, then treat it as a skill lift. If you want to squat, I don't barbell squat. I Smith machine squat and I pendulum squat. When I'm in Sydney using my partner's gym, I use the hack squat because I don't like the hack squat at my gym. I also use a leg press. I actually do leg press twice a week. Don't be afraid to do the same moves twice a week if they're working for you. There's not a huge selection of really, like, the basics work. It's just up to, are you gonna get bored and then change things before they even start to work? But that's what we want. I want you to focus on, is your form getting better? Are you feeling it more where you should be? But I don't want you to chase sensation all the time, because it is very easy to think that a glute hip thrust is going to grow your glutes a hell of a lot more than an RDL, because you feel things more in that short and like that squeezed position. But it's the lengthened positions that actually grow what you want to grow. And if you don't achieve that, because they can't get their hips into the right position without their back taking over. And that's all about the bracing. So I want you to go all into that. But the reality is, you can diet for 6 weeks. And if you do it the right way, you can see if we want to use the scale, we can see the scale go down by 2, 4, 6 kilos, 2, 4, 6 pounds. I'm not going to give it a ballpark number out there because everyone's different. But for the same weeks, you're lucky you won't even grow a hair strand of muscle. Like, let's say you'll probably grow a hair strand in maybe 12 weeks. Well, I don't really know because we can't really do autopsies on people's bodies, but it's 16 times slower, scientifically 16 times slower to build muscle than it is to lose fat. Lose fat, it's actually a really simple process. You just need to be able to stick to it. That's the hard part. Building muscle, there's a lot of effort that goes into that, and you need to be able to do that consistently over time. And the hardest part of that is that you have to be okay with feeling like nothing's changing. And I had a call with my client. That's kind of what spurred me into this whole thing, because she was apologizing for things being steady, which to her, steady, she's getting there. She's making little bits of progress. But when I looked at the progress that she was making, I'm like, dude, no, these are drastic wins. Like, the way that you're showing up to the gym now, the things you're focusing on, how amazing your form is. The numbers are going up there. If anything, she was focused a little bit too much on perfect form, that she wasn't pushing herself enough. But there has been so much progress made, even around food. But because we are so used to seeing progress as these big, huge wins, we don't allow ourselves to feel any of that celebration along the way. Like, imagine if the scale is your thing and you get so excited over when you finally see it go down, if you brought that excitement to the effort you actually put into stuff, because the scale doesn't tell you anything except your relationship to gravity. You can have a shit ass week and go binging on pizza, then all of a sudden step on the scale and it goes down. I don't think that is telling you that you've progressed at all. If you continue that, yeah, okay, you might have gotten away with it. So you think, oh, I can eat like that and it doesn't really do all that much. And then you continue on and then boom. Like, that's happened before. And I had an insight from one of my clients who said, well, it's kind of funny because you don't realize how these things kind of like track over you. Like, it takes you forever to realize that, oh, these little bits and pieces here and there, I thought they weren't really doing anything, but that's because they weren't really doing anything. It's just all accumulated to this point where it's like, oh, fuck. And that's kind of why we want to have that same little aha moment in the right direction, but actually see it. We want to do the real hard reps. And that is being okay with progress being boring, fueling your workouts. I want you to start to feel your energy outside of the gym. For her, a huge win was the fact that she could actually move the boxes when the guys at her work offered to help her. And she's like, no, I got this. She carried all the grocery bags in one trip. We already know that flex, but it made her feel good. She's like, oh my God, I can actually say it now. She's not wiped out after training anymore. She used to be wiped out for like 3 days. She could only do 3 solid sessions a week. She wanted to have the energy for her daughter as well. And she felt like she couldn't be her best outside of there. She felt like she wasn't recovering. Before she came to me, she even reduced her sets. She was about to ask for her training to get cut down to 2 as well. And she was always snacking through the day. She actually was really good at protein, very good at protein. It was her main focus, but carbs, that's where we had to look. And she was having like tiny little bird meals. Like 250 calories is not a meal, that's a snack. So as soon as you get into this consistency, even just having a plan with your food and having some predictability, that kind of stuff is a win. Because just eating well isn't the same as eating for body composition change. And it doesn't need so much mental masturbation once you get into a routine. And I think that's why most of us think like it's so much work. But the way we're introduced to it is also wrong. because just training to lift weights is completely different than changing your body composition. And it can feel very mundane sometimes. Where a lot of people go wrong is that they keep trying to plan ahead of time to see what it's going to look like instead of just focusing on, okay, well, how can I actually start to measure progress now? How can I make sure that my training's working? How can I actually build my body? How can I make sure that every rep is doing something? How can I live my best life so that I can actually enjoy this process instead of going to my workouts and wanting to see progress to feel like I'm doing something worthy or feeling good? Are you sleeping better? The more you can feel in control of everything you're doing, the more confident you're going to feel in your direction. And with nutrition, it doesn't have to be all that much more difficult than, are you eating enough protein? Are you getting in a shit ton of produce, fruits, and veg every meal? Are you fueling yourself with carbs before you work out? Are you eating enough through the whole day? You're not just having carbs in one meal. Then we can take it that step further, like actually tracking your food. Like track your food. You don't have to do it forever if you don't want to, but you can make it so simple to the point where you just develop a routine and you know what you're eating. And every now and then you'll want to do a self-check just to make sure that things are where you want them to be. Just because you're not tracking doesn't mean you don't use a food scale. I would say that is probably the most important part, using a food scale, because when it comes to fats, when it comes to carbs, when it comes to anything that's like calorie dense, it is very easy to underestimate the calories in that. Things really do rack up very fast. And I think one of the biggest issues is as soon as we stop trying to be really strict in diet mode, we aren't as focused on these type of things in maintenance or when we're eating more. And that's when we start to feel like maintenance doesn't work for us. But that has nothing to do with you and has nothing to do with anything except the fact that we've never really given anything outside of dieting the importance or the value or the focus that it really does deserve. Because maintenance is a lie. You are not maintaining anything. The only thing about maintenance, quote unquote, calories is that we aren't aiming to put on excessive body fat. We're aiming to keep it fluctuating in a small range while we're fueling to build muscle. And yes, it is going to fluctuate. You're gaining and losing fat every single day. The net sum over time is what dictates your body composition. And always before you decide to add another exercise or another session or another anything, always ask yourself, how can I get the most out of this exercise, out of this session that I can? Are you recovering? Are you getting in your steps? That's something I never even mentioned. Make sure that you're getting in your movement. Just because you're eating more doesn't mean you just completely throw movement out the window. Find things that fulfill your soul, because when you're happy, it changes everything. When you're experiencing joy, it changes everything. You are not going to get to where you want to be without that, because that shows up in areas of your nutrition and the things that improve body composition. Like it can impact your sleep, your energy, it can impact food, impact your training, impact your consistency, impact how you feel about yourself. I hope that helps normalizing that muscle growth is slow. You are not going to get bulky overnight at all, because it's very damn difficult to do that. But you do need to have the same amount of focus on your effort in everything that you do that you probably put into chasing that number on the scale. Don't just say you're trying to build habits, say that you're becoming someone new. You're developing a whole new mentality towards this because you've never been taught this stuff. That is why it is so mind-racking, so confusing, because maintenance is meant to feel that way if you've never done it before. I hope that helps. I do want to talk about training and effective training, but if I could leave you with anything, it's that you don't need more expensive answers with this product and that product. You just need to stop. I don't know if gaslighting is the right word, but you need aggressive patience. You really do. And when I say aggressive patience, it doesn't mean just wait for results to come. It means actually create them. Fuel yourself, smash your training, and mentally masturbate over your training. Get that form down, push yourself, learn what it's like to push yourself to failure. Actually get yourself into the mindset of, I'm going to really send this set, because you can train to fail a set, but it not be actually training to failure because you weren't like, I'm amping myself up and I'm focused. And that's not going to happen all the time because you're a human. You have energy fluctuating, and sometimes you're just not going to be in the mood, and that's okay. Most sessions are going to be average. On the others, just push yourself. And on the others that just feel shit, then just be kind to yourself, because you're going to get a lot of those ones too. Like I said, your strength isn't dictated by how strong you actually are. It's dictated by a myriad of things, like if you fueled or slept or recovered. So if this makes you feel heard, understood, any of that, I want you to reach out to me. Let's have a chat. let me help you. If there's anything here that resonated that you have more questions on. But otherwise, if you're ready to get out of diet prison, start writing down where you can start to shift your focus to what progress can mean to you and where you can start to improve. Hoping that by talking a little bit more on training, things to focus on in certain movements, my favorite lifts, ones that I'm not really too fussed about, mistakes people typically make with them, I can start to give you more of a eye view on what's possible for you when you stop living in this like restriction mode where the only like if you think of your thoughts as like a pie chart, most of it is taken up with what's the calories of this. When am I going to get fat? I hate my body in this. When am I going to lose fat? Training, diet, carbs. We don't want that. Because when you enter the gym with fuel, with focus, with intention, I swear the whole game changes. You're going to have shit months, you're going to have shit weeks, and that's okay. But you're human, and I hope this helps. I love you all. And if you could rate this podcast 5 stars, it would mean the world to me. And you will hear me on the next podcast.